Okay, picture this. It's March 1st, 2026. The sky over Tehran? It's just on fire. Explosions everywhere. You know that long, simmering shadow war we've all been watching? Well, it just went from a simmer to a full-blown boil. This is a massive, high-tech conflict, and it's dragging in global powers and threatening to completely redraw the map of the Middle East.
And get this, in just the first few days, a combined U.S.-Israeli force has hit over 2,000 targets inside Iran. Let that sink in. This isn't just some limited strike. No way. This is a massive, systematic campaign.
So, to try and make sense of all this chaos, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the latest from the ground, what's happening right now. Then we'll rewind a bit to the war that really set the stage for all this. We'll dive deep into the Allied strategy, look at how Iran is trying and struggling to retaliate, and then zoom in on the battle happening inside Iran itself. And finally, we'll ask the big question. Have we hit the point of no return?
All right, let's get right into it. A region on fire, the opening days of a new war. What's the state of play in these first few hours?
The initial reports are staggering. For starters, U.S. and Israeli forces have pretty much already achieved air superiority over Tehran. They own the skies. But look at what they're hitting. It's not just military bases. They're going after internal security institutions, the very forces the regime uses to crush protests. They're also, and this is huge, systematically dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure. And while all that's happening, there's a whole other war in cyberspace, with hackers spreading messages of a reckoning. And then this bombshell. Former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has been killed in an airstrike. The message is crystal clear. No one in the Iranian leadership is safe.
But here's the thing. This didn't just happen out of the blue. To really get why this is exploding with such incredible force right now, we've got to rewind the clock about 9 months to a short, brutal conflict that basically left a lit fuse, the 12-day war.
So back in June of 2025, Israel launched this big surprise attack, bombing Iran's military and nuclear sites. Iran's reaction was intense. They fired back with over 550 ballistic missiles and 1,000 drones aimed at Israel. That's when the U.S. jumped in, directly bombing 3 of Iran's nuclear sites. After 12 days of this, a very fragile, U.S.-brokered ceasefire was put in place. But look, nobody thought this was over. It was more like pressing pause than making peace. And it left tensions just boiling under the surface, ready for the kind of massive escalation we're seeing today.
And that brings us right back to today and the strategy at play right now. This isn't random. The U.S. and Israel are executing this really coordinated 3-pronged attack. The whole thing is designed to completely paralyze Iran.
And you can see the game plan here. It's pretty methodical. Step 1, suppress their air defenses. Just take control of the sky. Step 2, degrade their ability to retaliate. Take away their weapons. And step 3, disrupt their command and control. Basically, cut the head off the snake. So let's break down each of those steps.
Okay, step 1 is all about owning the airspace. Airstrikes have been targeting Iran's aging F-4 and F-5 fighter jets right on the runway before they can even take off. At the same time, they're hunting down mobile radar systems. The objective is super simple. Create a completely safe corridor for Allied planes to fly wherever they need to inside Iran without any threat.
Next up, they're taking away Iran's ability to hit back. We're talking B-2 stealth bombers, taking out those hardened underground missile facilities, drone launch and storage sites. The kind Iran has used against its neighbors are being systematically wiped out. And out at sea, the Iranian Navy is getting hammered, with frigates and patrol boats being sunk. The whole idea is, as one official put it, to smash the archers' arrows before they can be fired.
And then there's step 3. Which is probably the most direct part of this whole strategy, a full-on decapitation campaign. The goal here is just to sow chaos by taking out the people in charge, and it's working. We've already got confirmed kills on some of the absolute highest-ranking figures in Iran's military, the chief of the Armed Forces General Staff, the head of planning and ops, even a deputy head of the Supreme Leader's office. They are literally breaking the chain of command.
So, with this huge multi-pronged attack just hammering the country, how is Iran responding? Well, the short answer is not well. It really looks like the Allied strategy is working. And this slide right here, this tells you everything you need to know about how effective this campaign has been. Look at this. On February 28th, right as this kicked off, Iran managed to launch at least 20 separate missile barrages at Israel. Just one day later, that number craters, down to only 4. Their ability to launch a big, sustained attack is just falling apart in real time.
And look, this isn't just me saying it. This is coming from the inside. Iran's own foreign minister has basically admitted it publicly, saying their military units are independent and somewhat isolated. When he says isolated, that's code for our command and control is a mess. He's telling the world that the decapitation strikes are having a very real impact on their ability to fight as a cohesive force.
But hampered doesn't mean helpless. Iran is still lashing out, and it's doing it by trying to widen the battlefield. They're launching attacks on their neighbors in the Gulf, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain. They're hitting critical ports like Jabal Ali and Duqm. And these strikes have had a tragic human cost. An attack on Camp Arafjan in Kuwait killed 3 U.S. service members, and missile strikes in Israel have killed at least 9 civilians. Iran is trying to make this hurt anywhere it possibly can.
Now, at the exact same time this war is raging on the outside, there's another battle being fought on the streets and online inside Iran. And this one is a battle for the regime's very survival. And this single number tells a massive part of that story. 1%. To stop protesters from organizing, to stop information from getting out, the regime has throttled the entire country's internet down to just 1% of its normal capacity. It's a near total information blackout. So you can see the regime is really fighting a war on 2 fronts. While it's getting pounded by airstrikes, it's desperately trying to clamp down on its own people. Law enforcement is setting up checkpoints all over Tehran. Pro-regime paramilitary forces are trying to stage these big anti-US rallies. But there's also pressure from within. Remember those strikes on internal security institutions? That seems to be making it harder for the regime to crack down. And you have hackers taking over state news sites, broadcasting messages that urge security forces to join Iranian civilians. It's a pressure cooker. Okay, and this all brings us to the final and maybe most critical question. Because this is no longer just a fight between Iran, Israel, and the US. The fire is spreading. The entire region is getting pulled into this. We are seeing a classic and really dangerous domino effect. Look at this. In Lebanon, Hezbollah has shattered a ceasefire and is now firing rockets into Israel. In Iraq, militias loyal to Iran are launching their own drone attacks on U.S. bases. And the shockwaves are even hitting the global economy. Ship traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, that critical choke point for about 1/5 of the world's oil, has dropped by a staggering 70%. So this is where we are right now. You've got Iran's leadership in disarray, its military struggling, and its grip on its own people being tested like never before. The big question, the terrifying question, is what happens next? Are we watching the end of the Islamic Republic? Or are we just seeing the opening act of a much, much wider and more devastating regional war?